Miquella the Kind spoke of the beginning.
Mother,
The seduction
wouldst thou truly lordship sanction
and the betrayal.
one so bereft of light?
The Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is my favourite part of Elden Ring. Every time I replay through the game, it's the part I look forward to the most. Miquella and Messmer are my favourite and second favourite characters respectively, and I'd like to showcase some of their dynamic. The parallels within their characters, how they complement each other within the DLC, the mirroring they have against each other and characters within the base game. Alongside that, this video is a dive into why the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is the perfect counterpart to Elden Ring's base game.
Those stripped of the grace of gold shadow meet death in the embrace of Messmer's flame.
Come now, touch the withered arm and travel to the realm of shadow. I will not be far behind. May we meet again.
It's not an uncommon opinion that FromSoft dropped the ball when it came to the DLC, and I'd like to shine some light on that. Firstly, let's lay some groundwork into what the Land of Shadow actually is. My first time entering the DLC, I was surprised at how uneventful it seemed to be. You just walk up to Miquella and touch the arm, fade to black, and there you are. The lack of a cutscene led me to question what the actual mechanics behind the Land of Shadow are. How does this egg work? Why is nobody inside able to return home? Why is there no mention of any of the events pertaining to it in the base game? If you've ever played a FromSoft game, you'd know that FromSoft loves to hide things. In the dark crevices, difficult places to reach, areas soft-locked behind bosses, etc. The hidden places of Elden Ring are places where something terrible committed by the Golden Order occurred. The massacre and genocide of the Giants is hidden behind the Lord of Leyndell, the current highest representative of the Golden Order. Subsequently, that very same representative being Morgott, an omen, is given the title of the Veiled Monarch by Gideon. The sealing and hiding of the Rune of Death in a place practically impossible to get to, one of the major cruxes and sins behind the events of the game. The mass burial of thousands of merchants is hidden behind a well, past a nauseating maze, through the death of a boss and a hidden wall, all the while being in the heart of Leyndell. This theme is embodied in Messmer's character, the Golden Order hiding all of its atrocities. It's also no coincidence that arguably the most mistreated member of the Golden Order stands present before this mass burial. Speaking of that mistreated member, the Ullman twins were both raised, hidden, and secluded away in the sewers. The Mogwin dynasty, if you don't participate in Vari's questline, is incredibly difficult to access without outside assistance. Hidden behind two secret medallions leagues and leagues apart, just finding these two naturally is a feat. Behind the most obscuring area in the game, and even then it's tucked away in a tiny little corner. Through an entire another level and a boss lies our answer to everything. The reason that there's no mention of the DLC in the base game is because the Golden Order is masterful at hiding its evil. Within the Shadow Realm alone, everywhere you look is another atrocity committed, and in that land hides even deeper and darker secrets veiled by shadow. Marika is fantastic at hiding things. The item which allows you to hide and obscure yourself is Marika's mischief. Now, to go on a little tangent, the opinion that FromSoft rushed the DLC in terms of lore and story isn't that uncommon. People don't like a lot of aspects, but specifically the disconnect from the base game and the DLC. Where in Dark Souls 1 we got breadcrumbs for Artorias, then finally learned the truth of that story in the DLC, Elden Ring's is completely opposite. which leads people to say that they had no idea what they were doing. FromSoft had the story of the DLC for Elden Ring planned out when the base game was created. It wasn't some time-pressing matter that they decided to press the random bullshit go button. This stuff was planned. The point I'm making is that the disconnect we feel lore-wise from the DLC and the base game is intentional and works perfectly. It's supposed to hammer home the fact that from the average viewpoint, the Golden Order has no shadow, no flaws, and no sin. Alongside this, I'd like to talk about a complaint I once had with the DLC. A complaint I think a lot of people still have to this day. Gideon Ofnir, a helping hand for the player character into learning about the demigods. I was pretty disappointed for a long time when you couldn't interact with Gideon about any knowledge pertaining to the DLC. Learning everything about Miquella and the secret of a demigod that no one knows about, surely Gideon would want to know this, and yet we have no option to spill the secrets of Shadow. For a long time, I'd have the mindset of, why didn't From do this? I wish we could have gotten this fight. FromSoft kind of dropped the ball on X, Y, and Z. That sort of thing. Instead, I tried shifting my mindset to asking, what was the conscious decision behind not giving Gideon any new dialogue? My take is that Marika has squandered any opportunity for her secrets to be revealed. The realm of Shadow and everything pertaining to it cannot be shared within the lands between. She has completely removed free speech. The ability to challenge the current order, to point out that, hey, maybe this isn't so great, has been blocked off. I can see where Miquella learned that from. Now, a major plot hole in this, you might be asking, is how did Miquella learn about the realm of Shadow if everything relating to it is gone? This may seem like a cop-out answer, but we simply don't know. It's possible his status as not just a demigod but an Empyrean may grant him some leeway to this, seeing how the start of the DLC story trailer is Leda reciting Miquella's words about the Land of Shadow. So he divulged it with Leda, who then spoke to us. The only mention of the Shadow Realm in the base game is from Leda. Leda being a member of the Needle Knights, subsequently an organization we haven't heard about once. We don't know how Miquella knew about it. We never get to talk about this with Miquella, but the conclusion I gathered from all this is that the knowledge of the Shadow Realm can only be spoken of if both recipients know about it. Now, one more plot hole with this is how did we know about it beforehand? The dynamic with the player character and Miquella is that we both serve as mirrors to the amalgamation of the world. We've seen all there is to see, collected all there is to collect, etc. Miquella's presence is everywhere within the game. He's connected to every aspect of it. The answer lies in Leda's dialogue leading up to the NPC fight.
I thought I'd see you here. It's been quite some time. It was never kindly Miquella, was it? The Erdtree was leading you all along, so that you might ascend to lordship. Why come to these lands to begin with? I suppose it must be what His Eminence, or perhaps the Erdtree, desired all along.
The player character and Marika are connected. She who took away grace that made us become tarnished, she now returns it, in hopes that someone might put an end to her. Whatever veil was put over everyone else has been lifted on us, leading us to know about the Shadow Realm but not the events within it. Since we're born after the events of Messmer's crusade and nobody else in the world knows about it, we're subconsciously allowed to know of its existence, but that's it. The problem with things like this is that FromSoft storytelling focuses less on how events occur and more on why or what they represent. If you don't like that, then fair enough. Even to me, it feels like I'm stretching for an answer here, so if you don't agree, that's valid, but thematically, I think it fits. Marika and Miquella suppressing speech to protect their regimes, alongside the DLC being the prime example of the Golden Order hiding its evil. Now that I've explained what the Shadow Realm represents, let's talk about what this egg represents. What makes Miquella and the Mog specifically able to traverse to the Land of Shadow? Miquella the Kind spoke of the beginning, the seduction and the betrayal. Marika's ascension to divinity is obscure, ambiguous, and overall subjective. However, the mention of seduction is very interesting. It's no secret that incest is everywhere in Elden Ring. The sexual aspects of this game are inherently wrong. Mog and Miquella are a perfect example of this. No matter how much of his bloody bedchamber he tried to share, he received no response from the young Empyrean. It would seem that in order to enter the realm of shadow, a recreation of Marika's ascension is needed, which requires three things. Firstly, Marika's blood. Secondly, an act of seduction. And thirdly, a betrayal. Miquella has divine blood. He seduced Mog with the charm and ultimately betrayed him, using him as nothing but a means to an end. Marika seduced something, supposedly the Haunted, and betrayed them, using them as corpses to pave her staircase to the heavens, Miquella using Mog's body to ascend his own divinity. The reason nobody can get in or out is because the ingredients for entry are practically impossible to fulfill or even know about. If it weren't for Miquella, we wouldn't have access to the realm of shadow. Alongside this, the egg in which Miquella's body is in is atop a pelvic bone. The womb is in the middle of the pelvic cavity. The Gate of Divinity shares visual similarities to a vagina. Both are instruments of birth or creation. Both work as a sort of portal. Miquella entering the Gate of Divinity is reborn. Miquella's body serves as the portal or gateway to the Shadow Realm. Miquella's corpse and the Gate of Divinity are incredibly bloody and visceral. The entryway to this realm of atrocity is drenched in blood. No surprise that the boss to enter this realm of shadow is blood manifested, alongside his patron being the formless mother. Miquella is an observant person. He sees how faulty and downright wrong the Golden Order is. It's not surprising that the one who wishes to divest himself of everything pertaining to the Golden Order is the one who knows the most about it. Now that I've covered what the Shadow Realm represents, I'd like to talk about it from a Jungian perspective. For those unfamiliar, Jung spoke of a shadow self, negative aspects of ourselves that we often ignore, hide, or reject from ourselves. Though it's not all negative. There are positive aspects to the shadow which is important for Messmer and Miquella. Instead of integrating the shadow into ourselves, accepting all of our aspects and becoming whole, rather than separate. If we viewed the lands between and the world at large as a person, its shadow being the shadow realm is not integrated, rather completely removed and forgotten. This creates disconnect and violence in the world. The lack of knowledge from the mistakes of the past leave them to be repeated over and over. If you aren't aware of your flaws, you end up repeating them. Jung also viewed alchemy as a symbolic psychological process, representing the individuation of the human psyche, the journey to becoming whole. The fool's journey is a metaphor of life's journey to achieve wisdom and oneness, represented through the 22 major arcana cards. The final card of this journey is the world. The figure is both male and female, suspended between heaven and earth, completeness and oneness with any and all. Miquella had the basis and potential to achieve this oneness, however, his self-mutilation puts him further and further away. The disconnect he saw growing up in Marika and Radagon told him that this fusion of both sexes was a negative. The poison of Marika's shadow drips through. As Marika and Radagon never integrated with one another, their differences harbored conflict within. Marika's shadow self is present in each of her children, where Miquella attempts to remove any and all shadow, the blinding light that overwhelms any darkness. We have a clear duality with another son whose life, essence, spirit, and self is intertwined with the abyss, hidden away, keeping company with the original sin and a hatred that would not be confined. Messmer and his relationship with Shadow is twisted and malformed. The symbolical representation of the serpent in the Luciferian sense is obvious, Lucifer literally having fallen from grace. Fire is an incredibly malleable element. It can be portrayed in many different ways: creation, death, rebirth, hate, passion, etc. Messmer's fire was eaten away at by a wicked serpent. His fire could have been a positive aspect before, but the shadow is so rooted in himself it dominates his self. Where Miquella attempts to divest himself, Messmer is stuck with it. Marika's shadow passes through Messmer more deeply than anyone else. Her need to suppress his shadow becomes his need to suppress it to make her happy. If we look at the base game, Marika and Fire aren't exactly on the best terms. Waging war against the fire giants and locking away their own flame. The frenzied flame is the antithesis to life, sentience, and the human condition as we know it. Then there's both aspects of destined death, the black flame and destined death flame. They both take the form of fire. The removal of death from the Elden Ring caused the world to become stagnant. Death, alongside the fear of it, is necessary for evolution and change. She despises fire because it's representative of change. Fire is the natural enemy of order. Marika's order is blinding gold. Messmer's self is fire and darkness. Their relationship was doomed from the beginning.
Those stripped of the grace of God shall all meet death in the embrace of Messmer's flame. O lightless creature, embrace thine oblivion, as shall I.
Nothing Marika does will ever dissolve the fact that there is an abyss within Messmer. I spoke earlier of Marika's ascension to godhood, the seduction and the betrayal. Messmer's father is factually unknown. The most popular theory is that he's the firstborn son between Marika and Radagon. His red hair and butterfly hold weight to that. However, Messmer's curse feels much more personal to Marika. To me, Messmer's birth and just general existence is a constant fear for Marika. He reminds her of something terrible. Alongside the need to maintain a good image in the public eye, she can't be pure gold if her lineage is heresy manifested. Messmer and Marika's relationship is incredibly intimate. We get the most insight into Marika through Messmer. My take on Messmer's birth is that not only was he born from the self-cest between Marika and Radagon, but a third aspect was involved too. If the seduction from Marika's ascension was fused with Marika and Radagon, it would help put a finger on why Messmer's curse is devoid of any light. Every aspect of the sexual part behind creation was just downright wrong for Messmer's birth. The dialogue at the start of the story trailer for the DLC helps to cement this point.
An affair from which gold arose. And so too was Shadow born.
Messmer is that shadow. He's a constant reminder of what Marika committed in order to get to where she is now. Not only a reminder of what she committed, but what she had to endure. I spoke in my Promise Consort video about how stagnant the twin prodigies are. The potential for growth in both of them is squandered. They're intertwined with one another. With Melina and Messmer, they're a little more disconnected. Melina undergoes a subtle evolution through the game. She didn't have faith in us at the start, learning to warm up to us and making her choice to burn her flesh to make way for our ascension. The purpose given to me by my mother, but now I act of my own volition. However, Melina's sacrifice is emblematic of what Marika wants. She wants to die. Her current existence is miserable. She broke the Elden Ring for a reason. She doesn't want divinity anymore. Both Melina and Messmer serve as kindling. The duality between the two is in Messmer's stagnancy and Melina's progression. She accepts the fire and makes her own choice. Messmer attempts to rid himself of that fire again and again, despising his flame. Marika and her dynamics with the multiple aspects of flame in the game are negative, like I mentioned earlier. Melina is seemingly the only positive aspect of flame in the game, representative of a change in viewpoint. She's embracing the change of fire. Messmer is the embodiment of the negative aspect. The crux of Messmer's character is the abyssal serpent. The oblivion that it represents corrupts his flame. Messmer, much like a lot of characters in this game, is stagnant. The only semblance of change he undergoes is in his dying breath. Like I mentioned earlier, death and the fear of it are necessary factors in evolution. Since the start of his life, and just before his very last sentence, Messmer is the same person. His freedom, life, and essence are in servitude for Marika, represented by his eyes. I'd like to talk about the left and right hand paths of Christianity and how they perfectly summarize him. In summary, the right hand path was created to exercise free will, catering to the soul and born under the law of heavenly righteousness. The left path is born of sin and caters to the flesh, being involved in earthly matters. Messmer's left eye is never opened. Every action he takes is believed to be an act of holiness and divinity. His right eye is false, replaced with a seal of grace given to him by Marika. All of Messmer's supposed freedom is seen through the lens of Marika. All he can see is Marika's vision. His freedom, life, and character are all in servitude to Marika. His true right eye is an abyssal serpent. Once we strip away all the cover-ups, the lies, and deceptions, the only thing that Messmer can truly see is nothing. Now, I'm not labeling Messmer as a nihilist. It's not that he believes in that nothingness, but that nothingness is inherently part of what his character represents. Let me explain. Messmer's voice, cadence, tone, speech is pretty melancholic, tired, and just overall depressing. His complete acceptance of nothingness, this guy is absolutely miserable. Holding on to a long-forsaken hope that will never come to pass, Messmer cannot properly integrate his shadow because of the false hope he clings onto. Had he realized that his mother was never coming back, learned to forsake his mother earlier than on his dying breath, perhaps he could have changed, grown. But he's stuck, unable to grow or change in any manner. Once Messmer breaks Marika's seal, his life is utterly devoid of any meaning. He has no goals, aspirations, love, purpose, nothing. Merely a creature fighting for its life. Now, take this with a grain of salt, but the dialogue I'm about to play was cut from the game. However, it surmises pretty well what I'm getting at here.
Mother. Marika. For what purpose did I?
What was the point to all this? What was my existence worth? I can see why this dialogue was cut. Even in death, he's still looking to his mother for purpose, rather than finally being free, even if for but a second. But the point still stands. What was the purpose of Messmer's life, other than that of a tool for Marika? Another piece of dialogue that hammers home this point is with Melina reciting Marika's words. Hear me, demigods, my children beloved. Make of thyselves that which ye desire, be it a lord, be it a god. But should ye fail to become aught at all, ye will be forsaken, amounting only to sacrifices. Marika doesn't want her children to be emblematic of nothing, literally anything at all. As long as you become something, I will be proud of you. If not, you will be shunned, scorned, and forsaken. This DLC is masterful at recontextualization. Where Messmer's life and soul is that of a void, it's juxtaposed nicely by Miquella, who grants himself the ultimate purpose, peace on earth. Miquella's life, presence, and goal are connected with every aspect of the game. Messmer is disconnected from almost everything. An interesting duality in the dynamics between Miquella and Malenia and Melina and Messmer is that the siblings of fire aren't Empyreans, whereas the twin prodigies are. The duo of fire's entire purpose is to serve as kindling, at least for us the player. They're fodder, to put it bluntly, though one of them at least gained a semblance of meaning in that foddery. The twin prodigies are granted the opportunity to sit on heaven's throne, where Miquella and Malenia's presence is everywhere throughout the base game, name-dropped and referenced in countless item descriptions and dialogue. Melina and Messmer are completely non-existent to the outside world. The only mention of Melina is in the description of an item she gives you. Another thing is that the duos of this quartet are split apart from each other. You'd think that the twin prodigies would be in the same realm together, following their story. Subsequently, that the duo of fire would be in the same realm, however, it's the opposite. Instead, we're left with Melina and Malenia and Miquella and Messmer. The quartet cannot perform dualism properly. The disconnect we feel lore-wise from the base game and the DLC is showcased in these two duos. Before the DLC came out, I didn't really feel too much about Melina. Her journey and thematics were nice, but that's as far as they went. I felt like I was missing something to her story. It's only when her parallels with Messmer were realized that I feel like I finally understand what she represents, what her journey is. Both Melina and Messmer act as mediums through which Marika's will or character is showcased. Melina serves as the representation of what Messmer should have been, the ability to let go. Malenia and Miquella's journey in the base game feels like there's a hole in it. There are no answers to Mog's actions, everyone just assumed he was a weirdo and that was it. Much like people in the game and their viewpoints of the Golden Order, we, the community, were charmed by unalloyed gold. We were fed a lie and we ate it whole. Malenia's character is very important for Miquella's. She's representative of his humanity, his compassion manifested, the crux of why he's doing all this. That level of showcase and importance for her is only made possible through the DLC, though she's also representative of a lot more, but you get the point. The DLC is incredibly important for these two. Like I said, both Messmer and Melina act as mediums through which Marika's will or character is showcased. Miquella and by extension Malenia are attempting to enact their own order. They want nothing to do with Marika. Miquella hopes to cast off his entire golden lineage. I spoke earlier about Messmer's sight. If we look at it again, it can be viewed that he has neither of his eyes open. He can't see anything at all, neatly paralleling Miquella, who willingly keeps both of his eyes closed. 3 characters out of this quartet are blind. The only one who can truly see is Melina. Both Miquella and Messmer's lack of sight is representative of a disconnect with the world. Where Miquella is entwined with everything, attempting to divest himself of it, his blindness is a showcase of not allowing himself to view anyone else's point of view. A complete disconnect with the real world, viewing things as very black and white. His self-mutilation is the removal of any human parts, a complete disconnect with humanity, attempting to reach a spectral divinity. Messmer's disconnect is from a lack of participation in self-growth and evolution, being quite literally stuck inside the shadow. If we put these two side by side, they're both children unable to grow up. The disconnect for Melina and Messmer works as a positive for Melina. Neither Melina or Messmer mention each other. The only connection between them is with the item description of Messmer's kindling. I think it's safe to say they actually don't know each other, but they are siblings. Miquella and Melania are twins, born and raised in the same womb. Melania's blindness is representative of her blind loyalty, alongside the rot stripping away her humanity. Even with the rot eating away at her, she is integral to Miquella. Fire also inherently works as a barrier against the rot, fending it off in Caelid. The spell to remove buildup of rot is Flame Cleanse Me. Both of them are aspects of change, where rot symbolizes the change of nature, fire is the change of man. There's a disconnected duality between Melania and Messmer. Both are the weapons of a higher power. Each step they take, they leave corpses behind it. They're both natural-born killers. Combat is intrinsically tied to their selves, the blade of Miquella and Messmer the Impaler, willing to stack as many corpses as needed for the sake of their respective counterparts. Miquella and Melina both have a journey of attempting to make the world a better place. Melina and Miquella's relationship with gold shares a parallel too. Miquella attempts to divest himself of it entirely, seeking the absolute order from gold, which was born from the kindness of it. Melina has divested herself of gold's order, left with only its kindness, using that kindness in her fight against Morgoth. Melina is an incredibly kind person. Her monologue regarding why life is worth living in a world like this is a very beautiful part of the game. Her elder brother Messmer is, well, Messmer. Jokes aside, Messmer isn't entirely negative, explained well in this video by Fat Brett, which I'll leave a link in the description to. Messmer inspired fierce loyalty in people. He was able to inspire people from many different walks of life, most of whom knew that joining this crusade would be a negative for them in the nobility sense of life. Lands, titles would be erased upon joining Messmer, and yet they joined. Messmer's disconnect and melancholy is born from his deep sense of love. Written in the description of Black Knight Captain Hugh, after learning about Messmer's serpentine nature, he joined his father Andreas in rebellion against Messmer, and was imprisoned for it. Messmer mourned the loss of a brother-in-arms. Despite how monstrous Messmer is depicted, there are traces of kindness in him. Gaius was stated to be his friend. The two served as elder brothers to the Lion. Other than blind zealotry, how else would his Fire Knight stay in servitude even after knowing his true self, if not for kindness? However, there's one relationship I'd like to highlight, in R'hllana, the Twin Moon Knight. It's heavily implied that R'hllana bears feelings for Messmer. The wording in her remembrance of chasing after Messmer depicts her viewpoint of him to be very fond, and yet Messmer doesn't seem to return that affection. Her identity in regards to Messmer only going as far as to be his sword, a weapon for him to wield. Messmer's lack of connection with R'hllana is interesting. You can probably already tell the parallel I'm making here, but I'd like to delve into a little more psychology to sell the point. Indulging into a little bit of Freud and the Oedipus complex. The Oedipus complex is based on the Greek play Oedipus Rex. I won't go over the whole thing, rather giving a short summary. Oedipus hears a prophecy from an oracle that he's going to kill his father and marry his mother. By accident, Oedipus ends up fulfilling this prophecy, killing his father and eventually marrying his mother, bearing children with her. Freud's reading of this story is that Oedipus represents the subconscious desire to lay with one's mother, because the mother is the first nurturing and loving presence in a child's life. Throughout a person's lifespan, children are influenced by the love they receive from their mother in childhood, and it influences the way they interact with romance as adults. The major point is in how a mother's love affects their child. R'hllana is very fond of Messmer, however, Messmer returns no affection. He neglects her entirely. Marika was the sole reprieve to Messmer's suffering. He latched onto her and her alone for comfort, however that comfort was scarce, and he is ultimately neglected and abandoned. Freud's reading of the father in the story is that children feel an unnatural anxiety towards their fathers, viewing them as rivals for their mother's affection. desiring to kill them. Messmer's father isn't mentioned once. No statues, no descriptions, nothing. Messmer's father almost doesn't exist. There are multiple angles for this reading, but regardless, the paternal presence in Messmer's life is absent, downright deceased. He and he alone can win Marika's love. It's fun to theorize about Messmer's father and paternal aspect, but in the end, it isn't really too important to Messmer's character. Adding all this merely expands the abyss in Messmer's soul. He had so many blueprints, so many opportunities for a good and meaningful life full of friendship and love, but in the end, it was maternal satisfaction that took precedence, stuck inside the oblivion of his mother's love. Once again juxtaposed by Miquella, Miquella can be viewed as having three female sides to him: Melania, Saint Trina, and Marika. In order to achieve his goal, he divests himself of them. Melania represents his humanity, Saint Trina his love, Marika the aspects of divinity that failed the world. Instead, Miquella seeks his viewpoint of the pinnacles of masculinity in Radagon and Radan. Reflective of his all-encompassing presence, Miquella's characterization is achieved through both genders. Messmer's work is largely done through his dynamics with women. Miquella attempts to cut away Marika's influence. Messmer is entirely dependent on it. Their placements in the DLC is also a helping hand in showcasing their dynamic. They're connected and yet distant. No mention of one another, and yet they're so close. Like I said earlier, FromSoft focuses less on how things work and more why or what they represent. I'd like to add this point to the lack of interaction between Miquella and Messmer. Miquella once again essentially uses another boss as a means to an end. He did it with Radan, he did it with Mog, and now with Messmer. Needing that kindling to reach the gate of divinity, Miquella once again uses a boss for his means without getting his own hands dirty. Thematically, it fits. I also spoke earlier about Christianity. In regards to Miquella and Messmer, we have a pretty obvious parallel from that religion here. Miquella shares similarities with Christ, his all-encompassing love and subsequent love from others. Then we have the devil, fallen from grace, scorned by God. It's night and day with these two. The color palette of these two is also a major part of the DLC's landscape, represented in black and gold. The Shadow Tree, the Shadow Keep, Ene Ilum, the plains and reeds of the Shadow Realm are almost a diluted gold. Their palettes are mixed and entwined, yet they're such opposite colors they give contrast to one another. Though they're not black or gold, I also wanted to talk about Karu's Hidden Grave and the Cerulean Coast. The two are complete opposites. The Cerulean Coast leads to the Stone Coffin Fissure and Saint Trina. The color blue is often associated with sadness and melancholy, like with Renala and Liurnia being a bogged-down rainy area, representing her mindset. Though the coast is incredibly beautiful, it's symbolic of the sadness in Miquella's actions. Kara's hidden grave is a grave, naturally tied to death. A possible connection is with Messmer and his natural entwinement with death. In order to get to the hidden grave, you have to go through the dragon pits. Dragons are synonymous with fire. Blue and red, polar opposites, yet so close, Miquella and Messmer. Or another reading, due to the fact that the hidden grave is a sub-area of the Cerulean Coast. Both are tied to the Stone Coffin Fissure. The mixture of blue and red leads to purple. The mixture of a hidden grave and the somber coast leads to Saint Trina. Nothing concrete, just thought I'd throw them out there. Messmer's boss arena is a dimly lit chamber. There's almost a romantic feeling to the lighting, though there's a point for that. Messmer's fight is incredibly personal and intimate. We're one of the few people to see his true form. His deepest and darkest secrets are unveiled. Miquella's arena and fight is blinding. A common complaint about his fight is that he's a walking flashbang. The visual appearances reflect their failures with integrating their shadows. Messmer is dominated and entwined with it, literally becoming the abyssal serpent within him, that darkness spreading to all of his architecture. Miquella attempts to bleach out any semblance of darkness within himself. With Miquella, we're fighting the divinity of the demigods. With Messmer, we're fighting the humanity of them. Like I did in my previous video, when it comes to boss characters, there's the in-universe side to them, the character's story, world building, etc. And there's the mechanical aspect of them. I'm not going to go into a deep dive into their fights since I spoke a decent amount in my video on the Promised Consort, and I'd like to give Messmer his own solo video at some point in the future. Rather, how some aspects within their fights help cement a lot of the talking points I've made throughout the video. Like I mentioned earlier, Messmer and Malenia are natural-born killers. Messmer's moveset and fight is perfect for him. He has a lot of thrusts and impales. He drags out his actions and then quickly springs at you. It's very snake-like. Where Malenia fights like a seasoned veteran, her moveset is both methodical and free-flowing. She eliminates you gracefully. Her violence is beautiful, Messmer's is horrific. Their grab attacks are a good metaphor for this. Malenia's is graceful, the way she throws you up and skewers you is quite tame. Messmer's is incredibly violent and visceral. The sound design behind his impalement is absolutely perfect. Mirroring one another in their second phases, both are overtaken by their respective curse. Malenia states we will witness true horror, a possible insight into how she views the rot. Regardless, for me, and I'd say for most, the Scarlet Bloom, the wings, everything about her second phase is pretty to look at. Messmer's is monstrous. He holds the true horror for me. His form is entwined, twisted, and malformed with the serpent. Like I said earlier, the rot is the change of nature, fire is the change of man. Malenia is death by nature, Messmer is death by man. To me, Messmer and Malenia are two sides of the same coin when it comes to the aspect of death. The aspect of rebirth and essentially becoming one with the earth and life itself. The other is the endless oblivion, the nothingness behind death. Juxtaposed by Miquella, who, if we're talking technicals, doesn't even fight you. He's shielded from the bloodshed by Radahn, above it all. Messmer's hands are drenched in blood, Miquella's hands are the cleanest there is. Miquella's dynamic with bloodshed and death are not only prevalent within Malenia and Messmer, but us too. It's really no surprise that Melina refers to us as the one who walks alongside flame, fire being the symbol of change. The lands between are stagnant, and we alone bring any semblance of change to it. The one who walks alongside flame will one day meet the road of destined death. The player character is intrinsically tied to death, we who have died God knows how many times, and we who have brought death to any and all. The god who abhors conflict and the human whose very essence is conflict. The demigod of darkness and the human of light. The inability to move on versus the embodiment of change. Christ and the devil, the light of divinity and the abyss of humanity. The reaper and the savior of all.
Tarnished one.
Soon tarnished.
Aspiring lord of the old order.
Wilt thou be taken in the jaws
If you have known sin,
of the abyssal serpent, shorn of light?
if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. To I, Miquella, and my promised consort, Radahn.
Mother Marika, a curse upon thee.
Two children who could never grow up. The sons of Shadow. I'd like to give a shout out to Spooky for helping make this video. I'll leave a link to their channel in the description below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See you guys next time. Peace.